Hi, I'm Whack.
And I'm Pat, and thanks for joining us for another episode of the Weekly Orbit, the week ending Saturday, July 27th. Whack, it's good to have you back. You were on special assignment last week. We had Samus, who generously filled in for you. He did a great job. We're
Absolutely.
going to have him permanently fill in for you from now on, and I'm just
That's
kidding.
yeah, he was great. I'd love to. I think
Yeah.
I would actually enjoy watching that show quite a lot. So I'm all good for it. Like, get Jasper on there as well. I'll be tuning in
I
every
know.
week.
I know. And actually, we do get more views when you're replaced, I
Yeah,
have to say. But
yeah. I guess because people are kind of bored of my face, like
I
they see me
know.
5 days a week, they're just like, oh, not that guy again. But when you get like, Samus or Jasper or someone else, they're like, ooh, this guy's cool. Let's hear what he has to say. So I know that
Yeah.
I tune in on those episodes too.
Yeah. It's a fresh face, but both Jasper and Samus really give some good, different insight, and
Absolutely.
it's kind of nice to have
Yeah,
some different opinions that come on, and
that's right.
we're really happy that those guys help us out when we need
Yeah,
someone to fill in.
that's really
So,
cool.
uh, so let's take a look at the markets this week. This was ETH launch or ETH ETF launch week, and almost kind of expected. Markets were a little down. I know there was some people who thought, "Oh, here we go, going to the moon." But if we look at the way the BTC ETFs went, we're kind of following that similar pattern, aren't we?
Yeah, exactly. So there's this technical analysis that's been going around this week where it shows that from the day of BTC's launch, the price actually went down for a few weeks, and it went down 20% from launch day to the lows, and then after that it went up 92%. So I don't know how much of that is going to happen for ETH, how much of that is just cope from the ETH maxis. Of course, we want that to happen, and there's ideas that it might happen. In which case, we'll all be laughing at 6,000 plus to $7,000 ETH. But right now, it feels really bad that we've got all these catalysts and all this great stuff that's happening for ETH, but the price is just going down, and
Yeah.
that's not fun for anyone. So, yeah.
No. So right now we're at 3,222 and change in
Yeah.
US dollars as of Saturday. And so I think we saw around 30, let's say just 3,500, 20% of 3,500 would be about $700. So that would take us down, if we were to follow exactly the same path as Bitcoin did on their ETF launch, that would take
Yeah.
us down to about 2,800. So perhaps we have some more to go, perhaps not. It's hard to say.
Yeah.
What's been suffering as well is this continues, altcoins, smaller caps, Rocket Pool, RPL. For the week, well, let's go back to Ethereum here. For the week, Ethereum was down 8%. For Rocket Pool, was down 15%, which is almost double. And if we take a look at Lido, our competitor here, Lido was down 17%, so a little bit more than Rocket Pool. So this pattern has continued, Whack, where if anything, ETH and BTC showing a little bit of just holding on strength, and the altcoin market is just still in the doldrums.
Yeah, one of the tokens actually did well in this last week. Of course, other than BTC, it's getting those gargantuan flows into the ETFs for BTC. But Solana's actually been doing quite well these last couple of weeks, and it's actually made up some of the ground that it lost against the ETH over the last few months. So that's something that people have been watching quite closely to see what's going on there. And then there's a bunch of takes, people like, this is market manipulation or whatever, and Lexi is up 5% basically, whereas ETH is down 7-8%. So it's one of the few tokens that's actually performed well. And if you look at that 14-day performance, it's up nearly 30% in that time. So it's been performing quite strongly. That's partly based on Solana's own ETF hype, but the person from BlackRock came out a few days ago, I forgot their name, saying that it's unlikely that any other crypto asset's going to get an ETF anytime soon. So I don't know how much, Solana hype about ETFs is real or how much of it's just a narrative. But the fact is that, ETH right now is not performing well. And we're hoping that that turns around, and with ETH turning around, and hopefully these ETH beta play tokens will turn around as well. But that might be a few days away from now, maybe a few weeks away yet. So they might
What's
be
the old saying? There's a bull market somewhere at all
exactly.
times.
Yep, exactly. There's
If you
always
look
bull
at
markets somewhere. Yeah.
yeah, if you bought Solana a year ago, you'd be up over 600%.
Yep.
Right, we're at $180, and I think at its low, after the whole FTX collapse, wasn't it trading around like $8 or
Yeah,
something?
it went to a
Eight
low
or ten
of
dollars.
$8. Yeah, and the funny thing is, at that time, RPL was at like $30 or $35. So one RPL could have gotten you 3 Sol, and now 10
Yeah,
RPL would get you 1 Sol. So it's been a tough time for RPL over the last year, but hopefully we'll bounce back over the coming year, and we'll be talking about some of
yeah,
that stuff further on in the show.
we will be.
Yeah.
So let's take a look at the ETH ETF flows for the week. So Anthony Sassano post, first week of the ETH ETF is done, with the final net flow number being 341 million. As for inflows, the ETH ETF saw a massive 1.17 billion in its first week, with BlackRock, Fidelity, and Bitwise leading the charge. So actually, Bitwise, let's zoom in on this chart a little bit. They did really well. Actually, they're the second largest ETF at the moment. They're actually bigger than Fidelity. They're at, BlackRock, of course, they're the leader. They're at 442 million. At number 2 is Bitwise at 266 billion. Not billion, I'm sorry, million.
One
And
day.
then, I wish. And then Fidelity is at 219 million. So Bitwise, good for them. On a personal note, I have a small amount of money in like an HSA retirement HSA account, which is a tax deferred account.
Yeah.
And I had ETHE, the Grayscale Trust, and on Tuesday or Wednesday, I think it was Wednesday, I swapped out of that into Bitwise. And I chose Bitwise because I feel like they were I like Ben Hogan. He's been on Bankless. They're crypto native guys. I like that they're donating 10% of profits back to like the Protocol Guild. They got ENS names for their wallets, so we can easily track. I mean, they are fully aligned. And so I said, I'm going to go with those guys.
They also
So
put
I
out those really
swapped
good
from ETH.
ads. So
Yeah,
that,
that
that
too.
was that was really cool. They had some really good ads. I
Yeah.
think they had like 6 or 7 of them in total. But with the main thing that is hurting ETH right now with these ETFs, of course, is the Grayscale outflow and people wanting to get out of Grayscale. There were a lot of theories going into this week, about how the outflows might not be so bad and how people might stick with it and the mini trust, blah blah blah. And the reality is that people have made really really good money on this trade. At one point, it was
Yeah.
down 60%, from NAV, and that was a huge boost for people who had bought into ETH at those low prices. They've done really really well on that trade, so it kind of
Right.
makes sense that these people are kind of taking out. And I think what's going to happen next is those people will taper off, and if you look at the chart for BTC, the way it happened was it went from like 100% of Bitcoin under management down to around 45%, I think, of the initial holdings. And ETH, it seems like the outflows are stronger, faster, but hopefully it'll kind of taper off at around that amount as well. And once it tapers off there, and once that the Grayscale outflows level off, I think at that point then we'll either start to see more inflows coming in, or what we'll see is just the inflows that we already have will kind of overpower any outflows, and we'll start actually seeing positive daily data. Because right now, the outflows are bigger than the inflows. That's what's kind of partially impacting the price. Yeah, this is the exact chart I was thinking of. Yeah, so
Yeah.
the tapering off, like that's what we want to see, right? We want to see this happening, and once that happens, then hopefully we'll be in a position where people will be like, okay, now I might be buying the bottom here of the Grayscale sell-off, and hopefully that's what we get, and hopefully we'll be able to move up from there.
Yep. And for those just listening, not watching, we got a chart that shows the ETF flows from ETHE compared to GBDC. And it looks like on the withdrawal from ETHE is at this point greater than the withdrawal was at the same time with GBDC. So
Yeah.
it's a little more severe, but the pain might be over sooner
Yeah.
if this trend continues. So kind of like take your medicine, whack,
Yeah.
the next week or two. It might hurt a little bit, but hopefully that'll all flush out. And as it'll follow the same pattern as BTC did, and we'll start, climbing the ladder back up.
Yeah, and hopefully, if we don't lose too much ground, I think, the idea of if ETH goes down the same amount as BTC did, we'd go down to around 2,800. I think there's a chance that we might even go down further than that, right? Just because ETH price is a little bit more sensitive to sales, sells and buys. So it could be that, we go down potentially down to 2,600. I think that I don't like making predictions because I'm always wrong, but I think that's the kind of area where we might see the bottom, and then hopefully then the ETH inflows for the ETF will start winning out, and then we can start climbing really strongly.
Yeah, and the final word on the markets was there was some talk this week, the last few weeks, of in TradFi, there's been some selling at the top end of the market, like the Magnificent Seven, NVIDIA, Meta, Google. And there's talk of is this the start of a possible rotation out of the large, people are now taking profit taking at the high end of the market with the big caps and going to start buying some of the lower caps. We'll see if that plays out, but that's something to be expected as like a bull market matures. We've talked about that before, where you have the big caps lead the bull, and then later the mid to small caps follow up after. And I would expect the same to happen with crypto as well at some point. We will see if that happens. Hopefully it will, for all us RPL investors. So we'll see. It's go ahead.
I think one of the things that we really need to look for that to happen is the Fed to start cutting interest rates. Now, there's talk of that happening as early as next week with the FMOC meeting for July. There's talk of it maybe happening in September. But I think once we start getting interest rate cuts, at that point the markets will start pricing in looser monetary policy, maybe some quantitative easing, maybe some inflation, like money printing, basically that kind of stuff. Once that starts to happen, I think that's when that rotation will start to happen more strongly, and then we'll also start getting inflows of people who are sidelined potentially, or and the thing to remember as well is price causes hype, and price movement causes hype, right? Like the narrative follows the price, and once the prices start moving, then people will be like, oh, this was for this reason or that reason or whatever reason. But the fact is, I think that we need the looser monetary policy to happen, and then once that happens, then we'll start seeing movements all over the market.
Isn't it strange how there's almost an inverse relationship, because if they start cutting rates, that means there's a sign of weakness in the economy. Unemployment starts to go up, people have less jobs, and oh, it's a recession. Oh, great! This is great for my stock portfolio.
Well, yeah. Well, normally when the recessions are announced, the market kind of takes a little bit of a hit, but then the market recovers before the economy as a whole recovers, and the market's already bottomed and recovering before the Fed comes out and says the recession is over. That's kind of how it's been in the past. This time, there's an idea, and more people are starting to believe this, that we might actually be in for a soft landing, and that the actual recession might be avoided. And there's a whole bunch of evidence that shows that might be the case, which would be a phenomenal achievement from the Fed, by the way, if that was able to happen, because I don't think anyone ever thought that would be possible. But if they can get to looser monetary policy without there being some kind of disaster catalyst before it happens, then that would be absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I agree. So on to some rocket pool news. Langer's had an update this week on the pDAO vote initialization. This was yesterday, I think he posted this. So on Friday, 575 nodes out of a possible 3,722. Although we know that there's not actually 3,722 active nodes, but we've got basically about almost 38% vote power. We're getting there. Langer says we would ideally like to reach 50% for all vote power, but we may have to review our target depending on how we progress over the next week. So
Yeah.
just a reminder out there, if you haven't delegated or if you haven't initialized your vote power and you wish to delegate, you don't have to. Make sure you do that if you're a node operator so we can get up that 50% or so that when these important votes come, we can take advantage of the new Houston upgrade, and we'll have on-chain voting.
Yeah, which is really exciting. So we want to start using on-chain voting as soon as possible, and sadly we're just not there yet in terms of having as much vote power as we need to be initialized. And 50% would be nice. We're not quite there yet, but I think the team are saying that they're going to give it another week, and then in consultation with the community, it might be that that target of 50% gets reduced to whatever it's at, basically in a week's time, and then as more vote power gets initialized after that, we'll tweak the numbers. But there was actually a little bug on the Houston upgrade, and what happened is the vote power was set erroneously as how much vote power you need for quorum. So that will need a hotfix. So it looks like we'll have to kind of make do for now and try to figure things out. But the hotfix, I'm not sure exactly when it's going to go in, but we can still do the snapshot voting. So the tokenomics vote and all that kind of stuff can still go ahead. It's just on-chain voting, I think, might need to wait a few more months, maybe a few more weeks, potentially.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Speaking of Houston, one side note, I was hoping by this time, Whack, we would have had a couple of marriages to talk about, bigger ones. To date, we haven't. Any comment on our lack of marriage?
Yeah. So the marriage partners, I think the way that we'd envisaged things happening, I think the SEC's just kind of like fucked us over. Pardon my language. There was talk of consensus being a potential marriage partner in their merge documents. A couple of years ago, they talked about how they wanted to take their treasury or part of this treasury with Rocket Pool, and that was all awesome. And we were really excited about that, and nothing happened with that. And then when it came to this idea of will marriages at the protocol level with Houston, that seemed like it was going to be a prime candidate of one of those kind of marriages. With consensus potentially just going ahead and getting married with their ETH and the RPL from the team. And what ended up happening is they got sued by the SEC. So I think that has put the brakes on a lot of their projects. And I think that's kind of the situation that we're in now, where we've had the brakes put on these relationships. I'm going to ask and try to find out what's going on to see if anyone can give me any answers. I don't know if I'll be able to share any answers I get, but maybe I can drop hints to you all about stuff that I've heard. But at the moment, you're absolutely right. There's nothing, and we haven't. We are just waiting, and I don't have any insider information about when it might happen. I admit that it's something that I'm disappointed about, and this is what I was kind of alluding to earlier as well. About how I don't want to give price predictions because I'm always wrong. I remember, after Atlas, I was just like, yeah, it's going to be really cool, and we're going to get this, and we're going to get that, and things didn't quite transpire the way that I had hoped. And now, with Houston, I was like, yeah, it's going to be really cool. We're going to have whale marriage at the protocol level, blah blah blah, and it's waiting. So
there could be multiple factors for that too. It could be there's a lot of decisions that go into that, and where there might be a team that's like, well, let's give it 90 days to see how there's any bugs in Houston.
Absolutely.
There might be a whole bunch of reasons, but I think that the lawsuit might be one reason why. One factor. One factor.
Yeah.
Anyways, moving on to our next item. There was talk that, hey, we got Saturn 1 coming up, maybe hopefully in the next 6 months. Is there something we could do in the meantime? And there's been talk of how about we reduce the RPL requirement if you're a node operator instead of having 10% required RPL. Is there something we could do as kind of a bridge or like a Band-Aid and just to kind of get us through? And so there's some talk this week in the Discord about that. What's your sense of a couple of these changes could be done without the smart contract upgrade. We could
Yeah,
just do it. Could you
yeah,
elaborate?
yeah. Okay, so this is an idea that was kind of floated by Halululo, and it was actually I'm not sure of the full genealogy of his thought, but I know that like Val, in responding to Evan posting his tokenomics ideas on the forum, Val said, this is something that I would have supported a year ago in terms of as a band-aid, like kind of to get us towards something like Saturn, which is much more, he feels, a robust solution to the problems that Rocket Pool is facing. So Evan was, his idea is to bond NETH instead of, RPL bonded with node operator ETH, 10% of that instead of borrowed ETH, which is what we do right now. And that
Right.
obviously would reduce the amount of RPL required. So what Halulu is here saying is that if the snapshot vote goes through, what we should do is remove the RPL requirement now, basically. And what would happen is, we'd get all these ETH only validators who are potentially waiting for Saturn, and they'd come online now instead. And the reason why, he's suggesting this is so we can front run Lido's CSM, which will probably be launching in like October, maybe November. And Saturn, you said 6 months. I think 6 months is very, very, very optimistic. I don't think that's going to happen. The timeline now, people seem to think it might take 9 months from now, maybe even up to a year, potentially going into next summer. In which case, Halulu's idea kind of makes even more sense. Now, I'm not saying let's go and do this right now. I think on the surface, the idea of increasing TVL and getting those ETH only validators locked in now makes a lot of sense. Because they'll be what the idea is basically that the protocol charges 14% commission to like RPL bonded validators to give them, but what the ETH only ones would get would be like 4%, 5%, some smaller amount, but that still would be way above solo staking rewards. It'd be like 22% higher, I think, or something like that than staking solo staking rewards. So we could get those node operators enticed and come into Rocket Pool, build our TVL, build node operator count. But then the issue that you have is how will that impact the price of RPL, right? If people are saying, oh, you can get these ETH only validators online now, but then there's no value capture methodology built into that for RPL, then how is that going to impact the price of RPL? So I think there needs to be some discussion and research that kind of goes into this, and people need to bounce ideas of scenarios before I get more enthusiastic about this idea. On the surface of it,
Well,
the spectre of Lido CSM is looming, and that is scary. And if we can, defang that a little bit before they even get going, then that would be potentially really beneficial for Rocket Pool going forward. But
it,
one of the
is the
things that would actually,
proposal.
sorry, carry
Let
on.
me interrupt you for a sec.
Yeah.
Is the proposal to, because Halulu here in this, but he says, I really think reducing the RPL requirement is going to be a good stopgap. So is it reduce the RPL or eliminate it? Because you say ETH
Well,
only
yeah.
validators.
So
That
not
implies zero RPL.
Yeah, so Noshua replied to him, and they kind of had a back and forth for quite a while. And I think the idea that Noshua was pushing forward was that lowering it wouldn't make sense, like even going down to 5%, and that's where the 0% comes in. That's the 0% comes in, right? Like, and the 0% would work by reducing the commission that the RETH holders pay to the ETH only validators, so they'd still get a boost. And the great thing is that the RETH rewards will actually go up. So right now, RETH rewards, they pay a 14.5% or so commission to node operators. That amount could actually come down, like depending on how many ETH only validators come online, it could come down so much that ETH becomes a much more competitive product, which would be really great. So there are some definitely positives that I can see right from the get go. What I really want is for some people to kind of like talk about the negatives, talk about some of the issues that might happen with this. And I'm waiting to see that before I start forming my opinions on what I think should happen with this.
And if we wanted to give RPL rewards to those who are below 10% collateral at the moment, is that something that could be done without Saturn Because if you look at this chart, Whack, I'll zoom in on, we've got the majority of people, it looks like node operators at 10% or below.
Yeah.
So is that something that can be done before Saturn?
Yeah. So that would actually just need a tree calculation difference. So as far as I know, they just need to change how the rewards are calculated, and that happens off chain. So that potentially could be quite an easy fix, but it would still have to go through Rocket Pool governance, which is what I was saying is, I would really want Lo and others to start like fleshing out these ideas from now. So by the time the Saturn 1 vote passes, then we'll be in a position where we're very close to voting on this as well, because all of this depends on Saturn 1 vote passing, right? So if the Val and Samus tokenomics vote passing, so if the Val and Samus tokenomics vote passes, what you can say is like, hey, look, we're going to turn on these value capture mechanisms in 9 months time, whatever. This is just a stopgap until then. Please don't dump RPL. You know what I mean? Like, that would kind of be the situation there. But what might end up happening is, if you don't have that vote pass, then I don't think people will want to do this.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think it'd be good for node operators who've like every month they don't get rewards. You see what people are doing is they're withdrawing mini pools to try to get them back up above 10%, which lowers TVL.
Yeah.
And so it may make sense to certainly pay below 10% for now.
Yeah, I think that's
keep that exodus, stop the exodus.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So Pat, definitely write up a post and put it on the forum or put it in governance and bounce some ideas around, because I think Rocket Pool has been hurting for quite a few months now, and node operator ETH is hitting new lows every week pretty much post Atlas. And if we can stem that and stop that, and ideally, hopefully, reverse that, that would be really, really great. But sadly, we're not quite there yet.
Okay, on to speaking about tokenomics, the rework update sentiment poll has been going on this week, and there's 110 votes as of today, and the results are pretty overwhelming. 98% support moving to a snapshot vote on RPIP 49, tokenomics rework. 2% said no, 0% undecided. So I'm hearing that perhaps we could have a snapshot vote sometime this coming week, as soon as this week, we'll see. But this is moving ahead. As Samus and I, we talked about last week on the weekly orbit, we were talking about how this has been a long journey, and I feel like we're coming around the last turn on the racetrack at that turn 3, and the finish line is in sight. And this is a really positive. I think showing that there's such consensus on this is really good. I think it shows that the community has been involved right from the beginning. There's been really good discussion, a lot of vetting of ideas. It's just nice. It's such a big change. Seems to have like almost universal consensus on this.
Yeah. One thing that we should pay attention to is the fact that you can get a POAP for voting and leaving a message. So there's a whole lot of people who voted who might not have voted otherwise. So let's say that the numbers are slightly inflated.
Because if it goes, it might go to an actual snapshot vote, and then you'd be out of luck.
But
no one will care about the sentiment poll.
This has been monumental. Like, honestly, like a huge shout out goes to Val, Samus, Long for Wisdom, Scuzzle, Noshua, and like a whole bunch of other people who've been involved in this. They've done amazing work on getting these ideas out to the community, discussing these ideas with as many people who wanted to ask questions, like really putting in countless hours of work to refining them, developing them, making them understandable. And I think it's been absolutely phenomenal in terms of people responding positively to these ideas. I really hope that by the time it comes to vote on mainnet for this, on Snapshot, on Snapshot, not on mainnet, then I'm hoping that we can avoid any drama. But I think this is going to be a really, really great vote, and it's going to really energize Rocket Pool as a protocol, and hopefully the RPL token might breathe some life into that as well.
Yep, agreed.
Yeah.
Do you have a win for this week?
Yeah, so I've been spending time with my family, so that has been like so lovely. It's been a huge win for me. The ETFs going live, I think that's a big crypto win. Like it's been so long coming, for a long time there. We just didn't think it was going to happen with all this like, anti-crypto stuff that was happening in the government in the US. And now I just feel like everything has shifted so much, these last few months. And that's definitely a win to see, like the ETH banner flying at Wall Street, like with Bitwise flying their flag.
Yeah,
That was
ETHE.
that was amazing to see that. Like this is really cool. I saw this really cool meme where someone said, "Now ETH is on Wall Street, and next Wall Street is going to be on Ethereum." And I was like, "Oh, wow, that's so cool." So
That's
yeah,
good.
that might be a few years away yet, But
Yeah.
hey, if this BlackRock Texas Stock Exchange thing might work out, they might be making it on the layer 2, hopefully on Ethereum. Like that would be pretty.
That would that is exactly what I thought when I heard that announcement.
Yeah.
That this this stock exchange in Texas and BlackRock was behind it, and I thought immediately this is the tokenization rollout.
Yeah.
BlackRock wants to create a competing exchange against a New York Stock Exchange, have tokenization, the whole thing, and that BlackRock would be the backbone of that. The popular press hasn't really talked about that much, but I don't know. I can't help but think, because Larry Fink's on CNBC every other day talking about tokenization,
Yeah.
and I can't help but think those two things are linked, right? How are
We
you going
really-
to differentiate your product from the existing stock exchanges?
Absolutely.
And that is one way to do it.
Yeah, it'll be faster, more secure, 24 hours a day if you want, like all of that amazing stuff. Like that would definitely distinguish it from the New York Stock Exchange / like NASDAQ or whatever you're looking at. That would be really be something. They'd have to use some kind of Lydium or some kind of like a chain data to do it, because I don't think blobs could handle that amount of throughput required at this moment in time. But maybe like in a couple of years' time, if you've got 32 megabytes of blobs per block, then maybe we'd be able to do it then on a true roll up. But hey, like it would be pretty cool.
Absolutely. My win is the ETFs this week.
Yeah.
It's a long time coming.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? I thought if that scene of where they are rolling down the ETHE banner on the stock exchange in New York, and how 10 years ago that would have been like a pipe dream. And here we are. We've got it. It's now officially mainstream. It's the early days. But over the long run, it's going to be a real benefit to the crypto industry to have people have access to crypto products in their 401ks, their IRAs, their brokerage accounts, just for the normal people out there. So I think that's a real win. I think it's fabulous, and you can't help but be excited. It's a big milestone, and it'll pay dividends. Short run's gonna be a little bumpy on that, but over the long run, I think it's definitely a win.
Absolutely, 100%. And one thing that's happened now, with BTC early this year and now with ETH as well, I don't think we can say we're early anymore. Like, we're not early anymore, right? Like, we were early, like 4 years ago or 6 years ago, 7 years ago, whenever we guys got in. But now I think people who are getting in, I don't think we can tell them, hey, you guys are still early. Like, there might be like the early majority, but, there's definitely been a big chunk of people who are already online, so.
I think down the risk curve, you could still be early. Like the ETH and BTC, now it's mainstream, but all the altcoins, all the RPLs of the world, Lido, all that stuff, that's still, if you're getting in now, you might still be, quote, early, because those aren't mainstream, right?
Yeah.
So, we'll see.
Can I just finish the episode with a tiny bit of like delusional hopium?
Hey,
So,
the weekly orbit's all for opinion and hopium. So go at it.
Michael Saylor.
As you're in the dark now, I know just for viewers watching, he's in the UK. I think it's around 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock, that's right.
And so, as we were recording, it's been getting darker and darker. So,
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Michael Saylor spoke at the Bitcoin conference that's happening right now in Nashville. On stage, in his address, he said that in 2045, he thinks the Bitcoin price will be $49 million per Bitcoin, and Bitcoin will have a market cap of $1 quadrillion. There you go. You just need to hold on for another 20 years and you'll be a quadrillionaire or something. I don't
A
know what.
quadrillion dollars?
A
My
quadrillion dollars
God.
for Bitcoin.
I don't even know what to say.
Yeah.
Did he provide any? I mean, who knows? I
Yeah.
mean, I hope he's right. I hope he's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Why
But
not, right?
I mean, I gotta give it to Saylor. Saylor is kind of he's a hot point. You either like him or you don't.
Yeah.
But man, the guy, he is risk on, and he's with MicroStrategy. That's of him basically taking, using bonds, preferred bonds or whatever.
Yeah.
He raises funds, he takes that money, then buys more Bitcoin, and
Yep.
he's become extremely rich and his company's done really well financially
Absolutely.
because of that choice. And
Yeah.
I mean, he's definitely a trailblazer. I gotta give it
Yeah.
to him. My favorite meme though is still that Interstellar one where he's like, "There is no second best."
Yeah. That's a good one.
That's the best one.
But yeah, anyway, that little bit of hope, I think maybe just matter from holding on for 21 years should be all right.
Yeah.
Maybe,
Well, for our younger
maybe
viewers, that's definitely something to look forward to.
possible. I think RPL might be back at $30 by then, so that should be okay.
We better be. We better be. Well, thanks for watching and listening, everyone. Like and subscribe. For just a show note, next week, Wax going to be traveling. I'm going to be traveling. So we're going to take the week off. We'll be back in 2 weeks. We'll just say
Yeah.
that. I don't know when that is in August.
Second week of August.
Second week in August. And hopefully
Yeah.
we'll have some talking of the tokenomics vote will be either live or finished. And we'll have some exciting news to look forward to.
Absolutely.
So until then, have a great week, and we'll talk to you next time.
Bye,
See you, Wax.
everyone.
Bye-bye.